Welcome to the Adult Algorithm Podcast, the How to Adult podcast.
First of all, if you don't have a planner, get one.
I don't know
This
how
ain't
you
high school.
I don't know how you survive.
There will be no sugarcoating whatsoever.
This is the hashtag No Sugarcoating podcast.
And I'm your host, Jasmine Johnson.
You're like the best influence and the worst influence all in one.
Are you ready to grow into your potential? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Adult Algorithm, the How to Adult podcast with your host, Jasmine Johnson. Yes, I am not sitting at my desk right now because guess what? It has been the craziest week so far. It's only Tuesday. If you saw my live yesterday with Elisa, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's besides the point. It's been a crazy week, and there's only a couple weeks left in the semester, so I think that's why I'm like driving myself crazy, but I'm gonna make this intro short and sweet, something we're not used to, but you know, today we're continuing on with our career development month, which has been so fun so far, and I've loved it, and truly you're gonna learn so much again this week. I've invited a very special guest on today who is also our small business of the week, so get ready for that. And, you know, this episode is all about building your own brand, becoming your own boss, and entrepreneurship. So I invited my friend Cassie on to come talk to us a little bit about her experience through the business that she has built that just turned 1 year old. So that's amazing. And we are going to hear about that business right now in the small business platform of the week. Her Sorority Journey is a virtual community and resource platform designed to meet the unique needs of sorority women. Cassie and her team create engaging and relevant programming as they are familiar with navigating the pressures of recruitment, leadership, balancing academics and membership participation, and managing a medium-sized nonprofit. Through online courses, keynote presentations, the podcast, and the blog, Her Sorority Journey advocates for the power of the sorority experience to develop strong leadership skills and cultivate meaningful community for women to thrive in college. And now let's get right into the episode.
Hey friends, my name is Cassie Little. I'm the founder of Her Sorority Journey, and I am so thankful to Jasmine for having me on the Adult Algorithm today. I currently live in Denver, Colorado. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and did my undergrad at Arizona State University. So you could say I'm a West Coast gal through and through. However, I've been super lucky to get all over the country with the jobs I've held after college. I worked as a leadership consultant for my national organization, my national sorority, I should say. This isn't necessarily a sorority community. So I visited 15 college campuses in 10 different states while I was traveling. So a lot of that time was spent in the Southeast, got up to the Midwest a bit. After that, I worked briefly at a higher ed speaking agency where I also did some travel and started Her Sorority Journey a year ago, literally a week into our country's lockdown due to COVID-19. The vision existed before then. The execution did not. So my company hasn't existed outside the cloud or the experience of the pandemic, which has been super unique. Her Sorority Journey is a virtual educational platform for sorority women to find the resources they need to thrive in college, in their collegiate sorority experience, and beyond, into their alumni experience, and taking those skills into every sphere of their life. So it's been really awesome to come alongside sorority women in their new virtual reality. And I'm really looking forward to what's to come as we transition into hopefully a more hybrid and eventually in-person experience again. As I mentioned, I currently live in Denver. Like, some fun facts about me: I love exploring mountain towns. I'm a fitness instructor part-time.
Yes.
And yeah, love a good couple cups of coffee in the morning.
Flex the mug.
My intern got this for me. It says Girl Boss with like a lot of fun other like goodies after our event a few weeks ago. So I've been using it pretty frequently.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Cassie, thank you so much for coming on today. I am so excited. First of all, as a, sister of Delta Phi Epsilon, I'm so excited. And I've also brought into light Greek life on this podcast just a little bit, but I'm excited to dive more into it because, the stigma around it needs to be broken.
Totally.
And I am so excited for you to come on. And I love that you help women do exactly what we kind of do on the adult algorithm, is help them through their experiences, through their
Yeah.
leadership, for after college as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. And I think like you just mentioned, right? I think it's a really good fit because a lot of the work that I do in fraternity and sorority life, specifically sorority life now, is around those transferable skills, right? About how to maximize your collegiate experience, the sisterhood retreats, the chapter meetings, the elections, the officer positions, the philanthropic awareness and giving, and translate that into the rest of your life, right? Because the things you're learning, the interpersonal skills, the leadership development, the peer management, right? I mean, onboarding of new members, all of those things are going to show up professionally, relationally, socially after graduation. And that's adulting, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of the things that you cover. But I think so often we can look at college, if it's fraternity and sorority life or any other sphere, like the dorm experience or a programming board or whatever else you're getting involved in, even just managing finances as, oh, I will only deal with this in this way for these 4 years. When it's like, what if you use those 4 years as a safety net to learn and to experiment and fail? We're going to fail, right? To really, I don't know, like launch your life after college. So
get that preparedness down now. That way after, it's like, I've kind of been through this. I remember going through this in college.
I know what doesn't work. I know what works. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. Yay. So you are obviously a girl boss, like the mug says.
Like the mug says. I don't need like a little title plaque on my desk. I need a mug. Yep.
Yes. It's true. What kind of made you want to start her sorority journey and being an entrepreneur in general?
Yeah, okay, such a good question. So I'll answer the entrepreneur part first. I don't know if you like did any like strengths assessment or personality assessments in so far in college, but
Girl, absolutely.
so many, right? Creativity, I have always looked at as my biggest weakness. I am an interpersonal communicator. I am a extremely empathetic, loving person. So I'm always drawn to communities of women, right? So that's communities of women, relationships with people, like relationships is probably my top value. I just care so much about the people in my life, how they feel about being in community with me in whatever kind of relationship we have. And so that's what drew me to sorority back in 2014. I just like wanted to know people. I wanted to belong on campus. And my like professional like vision for myself was always very structured. So I switched my major pretty early on to business law in college. I had a huge heart for, just marginalized communities. So I was really interested in like malpractice potentially, advocating for people who hadn't had right medical care. I was also bilingual in Spanish, so I was exploring international or immigration law.
Wow.
And so that was like the trajectory I was setting for myself professionally in college. And while I was talking about those things, right, I was going to class, I said and had an answer for people when they asked what I was going to do, I was fully invested in Sigma Kappa. I was giving my whole heart and energy to this community that made a lot of sense to me. I'm sure made a lot more sense than the legal field, which I didn't have a lot of experience at 19 years old. But at 19 years old, I was managing a 220 woman organization, And so my leadership career in sorority was actually shaping me a lot more than my classwork or even my like extracurricular experience in the legal field. My last year of college, I had an internship at the courthouse where I was helping provide people free legal resources, not advice. So I wasn't acting in a position I wasn't prepared for yet, but I was just super educated about like what forms they would need to complete different processes, or if that's divorce or restraining order, and helping specifically Spanish speaking people translate their documents. And so that was the most experience I had with the legal field besides my classes.
Yeah.
And then while I was working there, I got offered the job to be a leadership consultant for Sigma Kappa. And so I was like, you know what? I really love Sigma Kappa. This organization has given a lot to me. I want to invest in it after college. It's also a great gap year. At that time, I knew I was going to have to retake the LSAT. I was not happy with my first score. And so I looked at this opportunity as a gap year. What ended up happening is that year was probably the most purposeful year of my life. I still look back on that, and every city I would land in for like 6 to 10 days had a reason. I was with those women for a purpose. I held meetings that were really intentional. And I was good at my job. I mean, that's not like a proud or like a ego thing. I felt really good at my job. And so while I was doing that, I got tapped to work at a higher ed speaking agency. And I was like, I said I was going to go to law school, but I don't really feel like taking the LSAT. So let me explore this. And so I worked for them for a while, and I didn't stay there very long, but I was exposed to this world that had a lot more potential than I thought. I didn't really want to work in higher ed. I never saw myself being like a fraternity and sorority advisor, but I had this at that point, 1.5 years of professional experience working with sorority women. And I was like, this might be it for me. And so when I left that company, a lot of people very close to me were like, Cass, have you ever thought about like continuing to work with sorority women, as I'm like on the job search, right? And I was like, I don't even know what that would look like. And they were like, what if you created what you wish you had in college? And so January, February, March of 2020, I was building out curriculum. I was kind of exploring the things that I wish I'd known. I was connecting with women on LinkedIn and hearing about their experiences as new leaders, what they needed. And this was all pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And so as I was building this stuff out, I was ready to launch this virtual platform that at the time was intended to be keynote speaking, courses, and like other kinds of content, if that was like a blog or just social media. And the week I was ready to launch, the country shut down. And I was like, man, this would not sit well. There's so much uncertainty. I like need to kind of reorient. And it really only took me about 2 weeks or so to realize that the need was still there, if not more than what I'd envisioned, because the women needed advice. They needed support. They needed direction. And I didn't know how to do sorority in a pandemic, right? But I did know how to do sorority in relationships virtually, because I had been doing that for the past 1.5 years, being disconnected from sisters, traveling frequently, and trying to cultivate sisterhood remote. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to use that experience, kind of like put some of these other projects that I was envisioning for the company on hold, because in person is not the priority, and help women kind of like focus back on values and the purpose, the intended membership experience, which is actually what I wrote my thesis about my senior year of college.
Wow.
It's crazy how things come full circle. And and help them kind of with the distractions removed, right? Like involuntarily kind of reset. And so that's kind of how her sorority journey was born. That's like the story behind it is, one, listening to people in my life who knew me really well and the things I was good at, and seeing the things I cared about and helping them push me to see what I was capable of when I had limited myself for so long, telling myself, you're not creative, you need structure to thrive, you need to like kind of follow a set path. It was like the scariest thing ever to create my own path, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like I can't imagine my life without her sorority journey now. And it's only been 1 year. So,
yes. Oh, I love it. And you did that through a pandemic, might I add.
Right.
Like you said, a weekend, like, and I actually know of another company too, that the same thing happened to them. And it's just like, you have to kind of take this new perspective on the world and switch it into something positive and make it your own. And that's exactly what you did. So congratulations on 1 year. First of all,
Thanks.
yes.
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. We had a big birthday party in the form of a summit. It was awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely celebrated well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. But I actually do want to ask before we get into that is what do you think the hardest part about building this brand and your own brand has been so far?
I think the first element of like difficulty I faced was going out on my own. The culture of sorority is rooted in community, right? It's rooted in like mutual trust with one another. I mean, in the Panhellenic Creed, it talks about mutual trust and helpfulness. And that's how sororities were created, right? To bond women together through
Right.
difficulty. And so I'd become very conditioned to collaboration and delegation and even just like asking other people their opinions and like running things by people. And when I started her sorority journey, I was dating someone who wasn't a fraternity man. And so he actually didn't have like a lot of concept. He had a lot of business experience, but not Greek experience. And so I was doing all of it from the content side on my own. And of course I'd like run it by sisters, but they weren't working for me. They weren't invested to the same level versus like when you're on an executive board as you were for DeFi last year, right? You're all on the same team, right? Like they're on my team because they love me, but they aren't on her sorority journeys team, right? So the first challenge I think was learning how to like trust myself and trust what I thought was best when I didn't have other people to run it by. And like just posting the Instagram, right? Just like launching the blog, letting the podcast go out there. When I think sometimes I like wanted to like have 3 people like tell me it was good enough, and learning how to tell myself that my work was good enough, especially as women, is not something that I'm sure I'm unique to struggling with. I think that was the first challenge, which kind of led to getting very tied up with the brand being part of my identity, right? Like I had identified these problems that I wanted to solve, these resources that didn't exist when I was a sorority woman. And because what her sorority journey is doing matters so much to me, was my idea, was my like baby.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning, and I even struggle with this now and then, getting caught up with her sorority journey being an extension of myself, which it is, but it's not a reflection of who I am as a person, right? Like my goal is not to like elevate my own like name or brand through this. Like if anything, I can't wait till the day that her sorority journey has more followers than Little Cass, right? And is more well-known than me personally. Because my name won't always be, or me personally, like I won't always be the face of the brand. And that's the other reason that it's really important to me that we look at her sorority journey as a collective, because it's not just based on my experiences, right? The women I worked with as a consultant and with the speaking agency I was at, those women, those Panhellenic communities, those, I don't know, experiences, conversations that I had, all influence the work that we do, all influence the resources we create, the problems we solve. And so often I think we can look at a founder and be like, that founder's experience is the reason that company exists. It might be the reason the company exists, but it's not exclusive to that founder's experience.
Yes.
So I think that's another thing I keep in mind too, in trying to separate the two, is knowing that her sorority journey will be relevant much longer than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were mentioning earlier, your big 1-year celebration with the event. Do you want to kind of explain to everyone what that is, and how the planning process was throughout, as you know, the person running it and the entrepreneur?
Yeah. Okay. So I want to say like November or December, I sat down with a really good friend of mine who's now like an intern of the company. And was like, like her sorority journey turns 1 in late March and my birthday is in early March. And so I just turned 25. So I think 25 is like a big deal. And I don't know, my company turning 1 is a big deal, especially also because March is when we lost our normalcy last year, right? When we kind of transitioned to this virtual social distanced environment. And so March was going to be a big month, both for me personally, for our community, for our company. And so I wanted to find a way to celebrate the work that we'd accomplished this past year while providing extra value to the women who might need it in this time, especially a year into sorority being done differently, and how to refresh their purpose and their intentionality and their membership. So I was like thinking through things and what other women that I look up to in the entrepreneur space had been doing for their communities, and virtual events, virtual conferences have become more popular and super accessible, right? When you don't all have to like fly to Indianapolis,
Right.
it becomes more affordable.
Yep.
The accessibility piece is just so much higher when you can just log on. And I had attended a few myself. And so I had attended one of my really good friends' virtual conferences on mental health on World Mental Health Day. And I kind of like touched base with her and asked her how her event went, how things, I don't know, how she felt about the experience. And that's another thing that I'm really passionate about in my business is when I find women, or when I know of women who are doing similar things or executing in the same way that I desire to, I want to become friends with them. I don't want to look at them as competition. I don't want to create more of a like disparity. I want to put our heads together and see how we can both grow. And this woman ended up being a speaker at my event, which was really special.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, so I had a conversation with her super early on, and I was like, like, I think I want to host a summit for our 1 year like anniversary. It wasn't called a summit at the time. I was calling it a conference, but summit just really aligned with the brand and this intent to really, I don't know, create more meaning and more meaning in the journey. And so I chatted with her. I like fleshed some stuff out with my intern, and it took a long time to come up with the name. It was a lot of like giant poster papers on my walls, a whiteboard, and I wanted there to be merchandise. I wanted it to be a couple days so it wasn't super overwhelming. I wanted the sessions not to be longer than like 20-ish minutes. So it was takeaways in a time frame that was really effective for the attendees. And through like all this like wordsmithing we did, I came across I don't even know how it came to me. It was like a Saturday night, and I was like with my expo marker on a whiteboard, like writing down all these words. I'm like, what about uncharted? Like going a path that's not super common, that's a little bit more difficult to navigate, but the one you're meant to be on. And I think so often in sorority, we can get so caught up on this path that's been told to us by the media, by friends that are older than us, by fraternity men about what the sorority experience is supposed to look like, that has veered so far from the intent of our founders. And our founders weren't perfect, right? But they did have some really intentional foundation set up for us about how to support women with purpose, and how to promote confidence, and how to really leave changed from this experience. And I think that path's become a little uncharted.
Yeah.
So the goal of this summit was, through each day, through each speaker, through each session, how do we help women feel a little empowered and gain a little bit more confidence to map out a more meaningful membership experience, one that might be uncharted?
Mm-hmm.
So we broke it up into 3 days, and each of the days was covering a different topic. So we covered sisterhood on Friday, on our birthday. We covered collegiate skills, and then we covered lifelong application. And so the entire experience could be applicable to women in any season of their sorority journey. If you joined 6 weeks ago, or if you graduated 6 years ago, you're going to gain something from this. Another reason I wanted it to be so broad was because so often there's these conferences or leadership experiences created for officers, right?
Yeah.
For women who have been elected into roles. And I don't know about you, but so often I've gone to those events, those conferences, heard those speakers, give their presentations and been like, man, if my whole chapter was here, we wouldn't be having the problems we're having.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my goal was to say, how can we bring those women that don't often get invited or get those opportunities here for literally $20, right? And so the goal is to make it super accessible. We covered everything from mental health, diversity and inclusion, to overprogramming prevention and ritual application and translating your experience onto a resume, how to network and lead a life with purpose. The speakers were incredible. The content was so meaningful. We got so much good feedback. And the cool thing about the program is that it's actually still happening. The conference platform is available for 6 months after that weekend. And so we still have some large groups who are signing on to make their own summit experience for their community or their chapter.
Yeah.
And so it's been really special. And I don't know. Also, my favorite part of the experience was seeing the women connect with one another, answer each other's questions, brainstorm solutions to common problems. The speakers obviously played a big role in that too, but that
Absolutely.
peer-to-peer support was something that just blew me away and really just demonstrated the strength of sorority leaders and the national community.
Yes, I love it. And obviously it's been a success because all these women are really coming out of it with so much from it. And like you said, they could have joined 6 weeks ago, or they could have, they're an alumni.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because you're so right. And I obviously haven't thought about it till now, is general members don't have as much opportunity for learning about those types of things until they are like somebody in a chair position or on a leadership team. And it's so hard because you want those women to get that experience through their sorority, but sometimes they just don't, right? So that is really cool. And I mean, through that event planning, how many people helped you plan the event, and what do you think the hardest part about it was?
So my intern played a critical role, mostly in answering very frequent FaceTime calls to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, literally, I have this on my desk still. Like, this brochure that we sent, that was just like the agenda, took forever. I don't know why it was so difficult. So she also closed captioned all of our sessions for accessibility reasons. Another entrepreneur friend of mine, we were having some like upload, download issues. That was honestly the most difficult part of the summit. Was I'm a big extrovert. Like, I live for conferences because I love connecting with like-minded people and learning from them, or people who like have a different perspective on something that I can gain insight on. And so even though at the end of a day I'd be exhausted, my like social and connection bucket would be full. And unfortunately, through running the summit and watching these like little spinning wheels of death as I'm trying to like upload and download and like get the video on the template on Canva and then get it back to be closed caption and uploading to YouTube, all those pieces just were so long. Plus my computer was like sick of me, and it was like, would you stop asking me to do so much? And so I think it was really difficult that even though we worked really hard to make it a connected, engaging experience, running it, and I think the women would say they felt connected to one another and it was engaging. I didn't have that experience, right? Just because you're running it and you're not like gaining anything from it. That's not true. I gained a lot in terms of things I learned, things I might do differently in the future, but my social bucket wasn't full.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, so my entrepreneur friend who lives in Portland, actually, she's from here. So we just kind of like switched places. I think it's really sweet. Was working with my intern to like fix this YouTube problem we were having. And one night was just like, hey, Cass, you have a keynote at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Cause I conveniently scheduled a live keynote for a recruitment counselor retreat over this weekend. She was like, you need to go to bed. Trust us. We're going to like handle it and get everything ready for you tomorrow. And I was like, what? Like, what are what kind of friend would do that, you know? So they played big roles. As I mentioned, one of my speakers hosted a conference for her brand last October. And so she played a role in just like, if I like came up with something like, how should I handle this conversation? She was super helpful with that. One of our speakers actually is like the co-founder and manager of an agency that specifically works around diversity, equity, and inclusion work to help Panhellenic communities be more parallel with aligning their actions and their words. And they sponsored several women of color or people who I identify are Black, Indigenous, people of color community members to attend the summit for free. And so that was really special. We had a couple other alumni as sponsors as well. We also had a couple companies sponsor giveaways to promote engagement throughout the weekend. So posting on social media, utilizing the community platform. We gave away like some earrings, some recruitment survival kits, and donations to philanthropies. So a lot of people were involved in this. Few were involved in the admin side, but many were involved on the promotion. I mean, we had 10 speakers, including myself. So 9 speakers external to her sorority journey that gave their time and resources to not only speak at the event, but also promote the event to their networks, which made a big impact.
Very cool. That is awesome. And that's really helpful when you do have people like that on your side. So that's really awesome. And you doing that and bringing them in and everything is creating the future leaders of today. So that's really cool that they can, you know, the future leaders probably were sitting at the summit. So that's really
awesome. Well, and I think that's another cool thing. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no.
What else were you going to say? Sorry.
No, yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
I think that's the other reason I really wanted to create an opportunity for my community to learn from many more women than just me, right? Because my voice is very prominent on her sorority journey through the blog. I mean, the podcast, we get to showcase rock star sorority women in different seasons of their journey every week. But primarily it's my voice on the blog, the social media, the courses, the keynotes, right? So I really wanted to showcase other women's voices who are in this space doing really important work that just differs from the niche or area that I do this work, for our women to learn from too. So that was really special. And I consider all of them friends of mine. On Little Cass, we highlighted my personal relationship to each of the speakers, which was really fun for me because I consider all of them sisters in some capacity. I mean, Allison Burke, who actually works at University of Rhode Island, was my Panhellenic advisor at Arizona State. And so oh, you didn't know that? And so she did one of our sessions on the Collegiate Skills Day about overprogramming prevention. So the relationships I have with these women are really meaningful to me. And so it's really special to collaborate with them in a professional sense now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And through that and through your courses and everything, the leaders that you teach kind of transitioning into leadership now, what do you think your biggest advice for them through your trainings always is? That one piece of advice that you can't leave a training from, that you always have to let them know?
Yeah. So I always end my keynotes the same way. So if you're listening and you end up booking me to come speak at your chapter or community, I hate to like give this away, but I will spoil it. So her sorority journey is built around the concept of a journey, because I believe that we are always evolving and we're always growing, and we use the things that we have lived through and learned from to better inform where we go. And so I end every keynote addressing the fact that as we went through the content that we did, either in leadership development or sisterhood focus or whatever it is that we talk about in my program, I always end saying like, hey, through this time together, you might be looking back and say, hey, I really should have handled this conversation with a sister differently. I really should have put myself out there more, been more involved, handled a defeat differently, handled a conflict differently, whatever that is. And my hope for them is that instead of living in regret or disappointment with themselves, they're actually able to look back and say, that was an incredible learning experience. Because I can't change it, I need to acknowledge the impact it had, the consequences of it, the benefits of it, whatever that was, and embrace it. Because while I can't change what I've lived through, while I can't change this is the decisions or mistakes I've made in the past, I am in full control of the next steps I take.
Yep.
And so that I challenge them to embrace their journey, right? To utilize what they've learned to step forward in this season and maybe into a new season with confidence, knowing what they've learned from the past to make better decisions or be more confident as they move into this next season of their journey, because they aren't alone. Because whatever they feel grief or regret or frustration about from their past, every other woman in their chapter does too.
Yeah.
And so often we can feel isolated, feeling like we are the only ones who made these mistakes or didn't take full advantage of the experience in this way. But it's never too late to take control of your journey. And you're not alone in doing that. You have an entire sisterhood of women, a national sisterhood and community of women who are trying to just learn from their experiences and step forward more confidently too. And so I always end reminding women that they aren't alone.
Yes, I love it. And just in Greek life in general, I know we talked a little bit about, the stigma earlier, but there is a huge stigma around Greek life, and we discussed it in one of my episodes. Is actually a huge topic. Have you had any hate from anti-Greek life people, and how have you dealt with that so far?
Great question. I don't think her sorority journey directly receives hate.
Good.
Because it's so niche. And I hope this episode doesn't like prompt that. People feel like they need to humble me. Like, just contact little Cass. Like, I will say, I'm trying to like figure out how I want to answer this question. When I joined Sigma Kappa in 2014, I was aware of the stigma. I was recognizing that I was attending one of the largest party schools in the country. But I was desperate for sisterhood, and I didn't call it that at the time. I was desperate to belong. I didn't know anyone on a campus. And so that is why I went through sorority recruitment. And that wasn't the most empowering experience of my life, but it led me somewhere that I was able to call home, and I was able to develop as a leader. And I would say for the first 3 years of my sorority membership, my dad didn't know what my letters were. He couldn't tell you. He knew I was in sorority. He knew I was super involved, but he couldn't tell you like what my chapter was called. And he attended Dad's Weekend. He had the shirts, but it was just such a foreign experience for him. He played Division I golf at Arizona State. My mom was in the sorority. She likes to tell people she was a little sister of Minerva for SAE. But she wasn't. Neither of my parents were in fraternity and sorority life, so it wasn't an experience they were super familiar with. And so their narrative of what it meant to be in a fraternity or sorority was rooted in the media, was rooted in the hazing deaths, the destruction of property, the party culture, the sexual assault, right? It wasn't rooted in this really meaningful opportunity to belong, to develop as people who are better equipped for society.
Absolutely.
And by the time I was like, both my parents attended my thesis defense, where I did a lot of research on select sororities' values at the national organization level and how values were executed and lived out on the collegiate level. And by the time I graduated and became a consultant, my dad was telling his clients when he talked about his kids, like Cassie learned more from Sigma Kappa than she did from Arizona State University.
I love it.
And I tell people this often, right? Because I'm not the only one who's had that experience. There's another woman in our community whose parents feel the same way. Like our daughter has learned way more from her sorority experience and in developing her confidence in her career path than her classes. And that's not like a hit at the higher ed as an institution, right? I'm not trying to because you still need that experience. Like that still develops discipline and time management and all of those things. But I think my experience has better educated people close to me what the sorority experience was capable of. Like I mentioned, the guy I was dating as I was building his company last year, didn't really know what it meant to be in a fraternity or sorority because Greek life wasn't on his campus, but he learned about the potential and the opportunity. So did his family through me, right? Like, I think we are all able to be ambassadors of the right experience because truthfully, what the media is talking about, we have given them to talk about, right? Like, it's not like they're making things up.
Yeah.
Right. And no matter how many dollars we raise in fundraising, that will never make up for deaths in our community, right? Yeah. It will never make up for people whose homes have been destroyed, who have had noise disturbances in the middle of the night, right? Whose daughters or sons have been hurt through this process. We can't make up for that. And so we just have to choose to be better.
Yeah.
I don't think this is worth abandoning. I don't think the fraternity and sorority life community is worth abandoning. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to restore the community back to its intended purpose and reconcile the hurt that we've caused.
Yeah.
And I think to abandon, like the Abolish Greek Life movement promotes, I think to abandon that is to remove the responsibility we have to reconcile the damage that's been done. And so that's honestly a big reason why I care so much and promote this so much and have built a company around it, is because I believe wholeheartedly in the power of sorority and helping women find belonging and purpose in their collegiate experience that can carry them after they graduate. I mean, my experience alone I never imagined being an entrepreneur. That was never on the agenda. And it's something sorority enabled me to do, truly. And I'm not saying everyone who listens to your podcast or every sorority woman is like, all right, I got to go start a sorority company. You don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to, you're like, what sorority enables you to do doesn't have to stay within sorority. That's just what it did for me. Maybe you like, I don't know, start your own like Etsy shop or law firm or dental practice. I don't know what that looks like, but there are so many more opportunities that you're equipped for because of your sorority membership. And it's your responsibility to be an ambassador of those good qualities so that people stop joining our community conditioned to what the media has told them it's all about.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's the most intelligent answer I've ever heard. like seriously, it's huge. And yeah, the Abolish Greek Life movement is definitely something that I'm very uncomfortable with, in the sense that it's like, well, you don't even know anyone in Greek life. How are you going to know their experiences and be close to somebody that could have been falling behind or not having the best thriving life that they could have before Greek life, and then afterwards they're thriving. So yeah, it's definitely tough to see. But
and it's not to say that there aren't other communities on college campuses that provide belonging, that provide purpose, that provide leadership development. Sports teams do that. Student government does that. Programming boards, even like clubs and organizations specific to your major.
Yeah.
I have just never seen one do all of those things so well when it's done right. That's not to overlook the harm, but I believe fraternity and sorority has the power to do all of those things very well when we are focused on that purpose and not easily distracted by harmful behaviors.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for the answer. Absolutely. Everybody better write that down. But I actually have one last question for you. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that this is ending. I'm gonna have to have you on again. What is your advice
You're
to
so sweet.
Thank you. What is your advice to all future podcasters and entrepreneurs? Everything.
Identify your niche early, because if you go out there to be a podcast for everyone, if you go out there to start a company for everyone, you're going to get lost and it's going to be overwhelming. And you don't have to be everything to everyone. You need to be exactly what someone needs, because there are going to be more people like that someone who need that. And your following is going to be so much more authentic and so much more loyal when you're providing exactly what one group of people need, not everyone.
Yeah.
I think that's like, in a small answer, there's probably 1,000 other things I would say to entrepreneurs and podcasters, but that's probably my simplest answer, because my goal was never to be for every sorority woman. I think every sorority woman could benefit from what I have to offer, but I know that women who are joining our communities for solely a social experience are not going to connect with me, because that's not why I joined. That's not the resources I offer. I am not going to give potential new members the algorithm to get into their top house. Like, I am not going to give, I'm not going to give sorority women resources on how to become a fraternity sweetheart. I'm not going to even talk about like how to plan the perfect formal. That's just not what I care about. Like, and I think you have to focus on your passions and your niche's needs, because when you focus on those things and when those things are in alignment, it's going to be very authentic for you to not only talk about what matters to you, but also sell from that space. And I mean, I think women are really timid about selling, and I don't blame them. It's something that I still struggle with, right? But I think it is so important to get comfortable with charging for your worth and your experience and what you have to offer.
Yes.
So that would be my advice. Know your niche.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you very much for coming on again. #girlboss.
Yeah, you're so sweet. This was so fun.
Of course. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find everything?
As Jasmine knows, I am like very on it on the DMs. So follow us over at Her Sorority Journey. You can find me personally at Little Cass. If you have questions for me or want to connect more, I am very quick to get back to you. I'd love to even like connect over the phone. Jasmine knows that I love connecting with sorority women. It's like the best part about my job. So connect with us there. We're also on TikTok at Her Sorority Journey, Facebook at Her Sorority Journey, LinkedIn, same place. If you want to connect with me professionally at Cassie Little, that works too. Let me think. And then our website, Her Sorority Journey, you'll be able to see what we have to offer. Our Her Sorority Journey course is open for enrollment, especially this summer, to help you get back with your purpose, with your sorority experience. And if you're a leader who's looking for a keynote speaker for pre-recruitment or an event in the fall, just head to our contact page and we can set up a time to connect.
Love it. Oh my goodness. Amazing. Thank you, Cassie.
It was so fun to chat with you today.
Yay! I love it. Yes, go follow her, please, and make sure to go check out Her Sorority Journey.
Yay! Thank you for having me again. This was fun.
Yes.
As usual, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. And as usual, I have learned so much than I did, before this recording. So I hope you all are on that same boat as well. And as usual, if you're new here, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to listen to us. If you are not new here and you keep coming back every week to listen to my long intros and outros, well, thank you very much. And I'm glad that you've stayed this far. But as usual, I'm really excited to continue Career Development Month. We are going to be having some amazing episodes coming up soon. And if you want to keep supporting us on our podcast journey, please ignore all the cups in the background. Oh my God. If you want to keep supporting us on our podcast journey, you can follow all of our social medias at The Adult Algorithm, except for Twitter. It's adult_algorithm. And follow us on our TikTok because we're going to be getting some content as usual out there, okay? So as usual, if you guys have any questions, concerns, please, hit me up in the DMs. And if you want to give us a review, I would absolutely love that as well. And I'm going to say it for the last time as usual. I will see you all next week to help you grow into your potential. This is Jasmine with The Adult Algorithm signing off. Bye.